Welcome to Soundtracks Make the Movies, a new podcast from your favorite music and culture site, Louder Than War. I'm your host, Audrey Golden. When I'm not writing about punk, post-punk, or women in music for Louder Than War, I'm teaching university courses on film and literature. In this podcast, I'll be bringing together my two great loves for your listening pleasure, songs and cinema. I'm hoping I'll introduce you to some fantastic movie soundtracks you're discovering for the first time, as well as reminding you about others you'll soon be keen to rediscover. In each episode, I'll pull out some of my personal favorite tracks, as well as some of the songs and bands that have some fascinating backstories to go with them. The rest will be up to you. You'll need to check out the movies and the records all for yourself. For episode 1, I'm starting with what I think is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, Martha Coolidge's 1983 film, Valley Girl. When it comes to Valley Girl, accept no imitators and definitely no remakes. The Valley Girl tagline reveals the film's premise. She's cool, he's hot, she's from the valley, he's not. It's a music-filled comedy romance between a sheltered valley girl and a Los Angeles punk. Upon its theatrical release, Valley Girl introduced moviegoers to some of the greatest rock, post-punk, and new wave music of the early 1980s. It's danceable, it's sing-alongable, and if you're a record collector, the first pressings of the vinyl soundtrack are deliciously collectible. They're really hard to find, in fact. The US and UK versions of the LP also are a bit different from one another, so you'll need to track down both if you're a completist, as it were. This is such a Los Angeles movie, but before I say more about the significance of Southern California to the film, let me get started with the first band that appears on the soundtrack, the Plimsolls. So Peter Case formed the Plimsolls with Dave Pajoa and Lou Ramirez in Paramount, California in 1978. They formed the band after the breakup of Case's previous band, The Nerves. A number of the Plimsolls songs make it into the Valley Girl soundtrack, including Everywhere at Once, A Million Miles Away, and Oldest Story in the World. And remarkably, the band also appears in the film, performing that first track. So they're not just on the soundtrack, they're actually in the movie. If you've seen Valley Girl, I think you know the scene I mean. Nicolas Cage's character, Randy, that LA punk I mentioned, has just brought Deborah Foreman's character, Julie, that sheltered Valley Girl I mentioned, into an LA underground club for the first time in her life. The Plimsolls are on stage, and Peter Case is belting out the lyrics to Everywhere at Once. Julie is smitten. As far as some fun Plimsolls trivia goes, the band started out on Beat Records with the EP 0 Hour. While they were recording that EP, Eddie Munoz became a guitarist in the band, and Munoz had some punk history already going for himself. He'd previously formed the Austin, Texas band, the Skunks, with Jesse Sublett and Bill Blackman, a band that's become completely legendary in Austin music lore. And then, as another connection to this Los Angeles film and the LA scene, Jesse Sublett of the Skunks had formerly been in the band The Violators in Austin, Texas, with Kathy Valentine, who I suspect you know became the bassist for the Go-Go's, bringing this Los Angeles connection full circle. Let me just tell you, if you don't know the Skunks music, you're missing out. Check it out as soon as you can. You're not going to regret it. All right, coming back to the Go-Go's. No, they're not on the Valley Girl soundtrack, but I have another unexpected Texas connection for you, and a connection to the Go-Go's, as it were. The song Johnny Are You Queer, which is sung by Josie Cotton in the film, who also performed in the movie like the Plimsolls, was originally recorded by the Go-Go's as a demo. As the story goes, brothers Larson and Bobby Payne wrote the song. Josie Cotton, who was born Josie Jones in Dallas, Texas, and then relocated to LA, started dating Larson, and he offered the song to her. As far as strange parallel music universes go, here's another interesting smidgen of trivia about Josie Cotton. In 1984, both she and the Factory Records band Section 25 independently recorded albums with the title From the Hip. One features Peter Saville design work and the other doesn't. I'll leave it up to you to guess which is which. 3 Josie Cotton songs ultimately appear in Valley Girl, including Johnny Are You Queer, the song I just mentioned, School Is In, and He Could Be the One. All right, moving on to another band that's really central to Valley Girl. Have you seen Edgar Wright's enchanting new documentary, The Sparks Brothers? If not, run to your nearest cinema. But if you have, then let me tell you, Valley Girl is the next movie for you. It features an array of sparks in the band's strange and delectable glory. You'll likely already recognize the band's single, Angst in My Pants. But the film also includes one of my all-time favorite Sparks tracks, Eaten by the Monster of Love. You'll know the scene as soon as you see it. High schooler Skip jumps on his bike to get a little action from Susie's mom. That's all I'll say for now. Watch the scene for yourself. All right, I've got a few more incredible artists to mention before I urge you to turn to Valley Girl. First, Bonnie Hayes contributes 2 of the best 80s sing-along songs to the film, Girls Like Me and Shelley's Boyfriend. They're performed with her band, Bonnie Hayes with the Wild Combo. Although Bonnie Hayes' roots are in California, she's currently a songwriting professor at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. And finally, Valley Girl boasts the first cinematic appearance of modern English's apocalyptic nuclear bomb-era love song, I Melt With You. It plays in a glorious low-angle montage scene that's also a love letter to Los Angeles, featuring neon images of local haunts like Winchell's Donut House, Casa Vega, In Touch Lounge, Encino Bowl, Dupar's Restaurant, and the marquee of the historic Sherman Theater. In the film, that marquee shows that Romeo and Juliet is playing inside. The song I Melt With You actually plays twice in Valley Girl, in this montage scene and over the end credits as well. Other songs and bands that appear on the official soundtrack and that should definitely find their way onto your to-listen list include Paola's Eyes of a Stranger, the Psychedelic Furs' Love My Way, the Flirts' Jukebox, Felony's The Fanatic, Gary Myrick and the Figures' She Talks in Stereo, and I La 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 Love You by Pat Travers. There are also songs that help to make the film, but aren't on the official soundtrack, as well as some others that are cited in the movie's credits, but never actually appear in the film. If you're realizing that you might just be a Valley Girl completist, you'll need to add the following songs to the playlist you're making. Tony Basil's Mickey, Bananarama's He Was Really Sayin' Something, the Earthquake Song by Little Girls, Sparks and Jane Weedland's Cool Places, The Jam's Town Called Malice, Culture Club's Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, and Killer Pussy's Pocket Pool. You can find those tracks and more on a mid-90s CD reissue for the film entitled Valley Girl, more music from the soundtrack. Funnily enough, The Clash is also mentioned in the credits to Valley Girl, but appears on no official Valley Girl merchandise or soundtrack material. Like so many women directors, Martha Coolidge often doesn't get the credit she deserves for Valley Girl or her other amazing directorial work. You shouldn't need me to tell you that in Valley Girl, she put together a film with one of the most stunning soundtracks of the decade. So transport yourself to the LA music scene of the 80s just as soon as you can. You're not going to regret it. Before I leave you today, here's a quick teaser for episode 2. I'll be jumping forward in time to the 90s to revisit the soundtrack for Singles, featuring one of Chris Cornell's most haunting and beautiful songs. See you soon for the next episode of Soundtracks Make the Movies.